that are providing excellent services, but there's gaps. There are gaps, both in people's knowledge of the existence of programs, because there's many of them around the city, both churches and soup kitchens downtown, but also there's certain periods where one of the groups goes on vacation, say. And the city can play a strong role in coordinating all these services to make sure that there is never a gap for breakfast, lunch, or dinner for emergency food. This is an ethical question. We need to make sure that people around our city that are hungry have an option to be fed.
So, as a city, the other thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that our resources are being stretched. We talk about our surrounding towns, our regional partners, who I don't believe are doing enough. I mean, the towns that connect to New Haven, many of their, the prison population, they're homeless, mentally ill, are being, in essence, left in the city on the New Haven Green to fend for self. And as a result, our city, because we have a high number of shelters and health services, we probably have the most in the state, or at least second in the state, with health services and shelters. And as a result, our resources are being stretched beyond our capacity to really support what's taking place out there. So we need to hold our regional partners more accountable, and we need to demand more resources from them to help us support those who are coming here from their towns.
Senator Hart, we leave money on the table?
I believe that we are leaving some money on the table. One, we don't really sign up enough people for our school lunch programs. And, it creates another problem because many cities who do a much better job want to use that as a measure for everything else that we give to cities. So it's a real problem that we're inefficient with that. But we do have a summer food program, which I believe is a great food program with 51 sites, so that we have all the programs. The real question is whether or not they're utilized, whether or not people actually know that they're there. I think we've got to do a better job with making sure that our elderly get food, the sick, and as they would say in my church, the shut-in get the kind of food, so it's good to hear that Fishes is doing that, but I believe that we know that we have 2 neighborhoods that are impacted and considered food deserts according to the United Way. That's Fairhaven and West Rock, and that we have got to really do something about food insecurity with our people. And I believe that the city has an obligation, if not the resources to do it itself, to make this an issue that it advocates on behalf both at the state and the federal level, especially since the federal government is looking at reducing access to SNAP and food stamps.
So a couple of folks have mentioned this issue of the city not being effective enough or efficient enough at signing up for school lunch. So I want to make it really clear. This is true, but what that actually means is that as parents, we're not meeting our obligation. Because for all of you who have kids in New Haven Public Schools, you know that we get sent home this form, and we're supposed to fill it out to indicate our income. And so it's the city's job, certainly, to make sure that we do that. But it's also all of our responsibility to take ownership of that. I wanted to be clear about that just because I think oftentimes we can point the finger at the city. The city works very, very hard to try to get people to sign up, to put in the information about their children. I think that this is an important role, not just for city government. It is the city's job, it is the Board of Ed's job. But there are so many advocates here in the room that care about food policy. All of us have to take that on. Because when we take that on, we help solve a major issue, which is the incredible number of people, particularly in our high poverty neighborhoods, who don't have enough money to pay for food every month. So in our high poverty neighborhoods in this city, 1 in 5 people say that 1 in 5 families say that they did not have enough money to pay for food in the last 30 days. That's what we're facing here. So I think it's important that we have all the strategies that we talked about, but it has to start with this understanding that we have people who are not eating. And I'll finish with this thought. we have very good programs from Monday to Friday, but people need to eat 7 days a week. So I think one of the strategies that we have to develop is to figure out
That's the weekend.
goes to the church, Bishop. Goes to the church. Or the bishop is actually listening, I think, Bishop Brooks. I do think one thing we need to look at is particularly for our children, how are we providing for those kids in that 20% of families that do have hunger issues every month? How are we making sure that they have food also on the weekend?
I think we gotta make sure that in the city, we gotta make sure the parents who do not fill out those applications be held accountable. We got to go up to them and tell them, why haven't you filled that application out? Not why, don't ask the kid. The young kids can't fill them out. But also, we got to make people know where these food pantries are, where they can get food, what time they open, give them positive information about how, when, what time, and where to go. And we got it, because a hungry person commit crimes. And that's what we're trying to put back. And by giving people jobs, by teaching people how to grow their own food, we can make this a better city. And I think that's what we got to start doing. Because the city is not going to take care of everybody. We got to start making people self-sufficient. Grow your own garden. It's economically better for you to do that. It's economically better for the city to open up more gardens and open up more land that people can use to grow their own food.
Next question is on urban agriculture. And it will go to Tony Hart, who will be followed by Jamal Rashid.
Good evening. My name is Beulah Rashid. Good evening. My name is Beulah Rashid. I'm a resident of the Hill neighborhood, an activist, an active gardener, and I'm the chair of the New Haven Food Policy Council's Urban Ag Group. The question is, urban agriculture is transforming cities across the United States. Community gardening, backyard gardening, school gardens, vocational agricultural programs, and urban farming. All of these models for growing food in our city can play an important role in improving the physical, social, and economic health of New Haven. What are the key components in promoting urban ag, which a lot of you touched on already, and what will your administration do to encourage more people to grow food in New Haven?
Thank you very much for the question. Actually, the one really great thing that we can be proud of in New Haven is that probably proportionately, we have more urban gardens than any other city in Connecticut. And that our food policy, we have a food policy council, which many cities don't have in America. So I'm really proud of the work that you've done. I think that we've got to make more land available to people to actually use for gardens. We've got to make resources available, and these, I don't think, cost a lot, frankly, for seeds. We've got to come up with a composting program. Currently, I believe Yale does composting, but we should get our entire town to work together for composting. It could save us a lot of money as well in terms of landfill and that sort of thing. So, and as I said before, you know, every time it rains and I see worms out on the sidewalk, I think that's our livestock. We could be using them to grow food. So the reality is there's a lot more that we can do. It's not that expensive, and as Zenyatta has said, that when we grow our own food and understand where it comes from, and I know I've got to stop. At any rate, yes, we can do it.
I am tempted, however, to ask how you have a roundup of this urban livestock. Next candidate to answer is Justin Halligan.
We've been doing a lot of great things already in New Haven with the City Seed, with the New Haven Land Trust. And we absolutely need to partner more with those organizations. But I believe the real impact we can have is in two ways. By using our purchasing power as a city to create the demand for local food. If we have policies in the city, particularly in New Haven Public Schools, where we're buying local food, there's going to be a demand for local food. And when there's a demand, we know that the market will provide for that demand. More people will invest in a lot of the vacant properties that exist in New Haven and grow local food because we want that local food. Second thing is to improve our food economy. We're doing that by educating a lot of folks through things like Cooking Matters, but there's much more we can do. New Haven's starting a food incubator, and that's an opportunity for us to help foster local small business growth in the food area. We have huge potential, particularly because of our location between Boston and New York, on major highways, in the harbor, for us to foster more growth in local businesses that are related to food. If New Haven, the city, can play a role in increasing that, which we're already doing with the incubator, there are huge opportunities to incentivize more investment in local food.
I think we have to show people how it economically benefits them before they get off that chair. Because once people see the economic benefit for themselves, they will stop playing their own gardens. Because once they see the economic benefit and see the reward that they get from what they're doing, they'll be more inclined to do it. You know, if I have to pay for gas for $3.50, and I go over there and get it for $1, I'm going to the dollar. And that's what I said, we got to show people how it's going to economically benefit them, how they're going to be in better health, how they're going to improve their way of life, and start opening up more city gardens and having our youth hire our youth for doing it and giving people the tools that they need to do it. Because once you make people self-sufficient and you show them how much is more beneficial to them, they're more inclined to do it.
Thank you. Henry Fernandez.
So I would certainly agree with the different things that were raised. So I'm going to actually point to something a little different. I live in the Fairhaven section of town, and every morning from Fairhaven, just outside our window, the oyster boats leave Fairhaven and go out into the Sound and do their oystering. We also have a significant amount of lobster and clams that are harvested. The truth of the matter is, though, that we never talk about that as a city, that we have this entire seafood industry here. And it's actually the best oysters in the world are the New Haven oysters. But we don't market it as a New Haven oyster because there's kind of this sense that the water in New Haven is dirty. And so, you know, we talk about them as New England oysters or Maine oysters or Maine lobster, but it's actually grown here. We need to be proud of our seafood industry. And we need to make sure that we market New Haven as a seafood city and actually market our oysters as New Haven oysters, because our seafood is wonderful and it's something that we should all be proud of. And I would say, just because you have a little tag up, we have the most wonderful drawbridges in Fairhaven because of the oyster boats.
I think Mr. Fernandez is marketing real estate. So Carolina.
So I believe the question was to encourage more food growth among residents, right?
What will your administration do to encourage more people to grow food in New Haven?
Yeah, so in addition to agreeing with the other candidates, I think there's some great ideas that are being promoted. I think that we have to lead by example. I think that starts at the top with the mayor. I think that the mayor has to send continuous messages, public messages that promote the growth of food in people's backyards and in other places. I think commercials are a great way to get that message out as a city. I think we need to do more of that. Competition, creating competition among residents. I think that if we can provide attractive prizes and have people actually sign up to have their gardens, be looked at, for this competition, and the prizes really were attractive. I think more people would be encouraged to grow this school. I think also providing writing as a city and providing grants to those who like to grow gardens that can help maybe our shelters. The food that they're growing can be used to be submitted to our shelters. And last but not least, those grants can also be used to support small businesses that encourage, that has access to healthy food and makes the food affordable to our residents. That's my time.
It is. And for this conversation period, so I'm going to try to hold this along the schedule. Really quickly, Mr. Elicker gave his answer. How many of you are committed to creating this position of director of food programs in the city of New Haven? Would it be, and if you support it, would it be new, or would you simply be repurposing existing positions or positions? Real quick, and let's make this one real quick.
I'll make it quick. Under our health department, I'd like to look at what we're doing already, but certainly I know during our interview that we had with the New Haven Food Policy Council downtown, I think that was something we talked about. I made that clear that we'll support a director who oversees New Haven food policy. So that's definitely on the record.
I certainly support the position and the creation of a new position. I do think I would probably have the position be a little more broad than just food policy. I would look at issues of recycling and composting, and as well issues of mobility. So when we talked earlier about making sure that the city is walkable and has good public transit, because I think it's this combination of food policy and mobility that allows us to address these two issues that seem quite different than each other, but actually are very related. The issue of food insecurity, that we have people who don't have access to food, and the issue of obesity, particularly among our children. And we have neighborhoods where up to 50% of the children are overweight or obese. And so I would look to combine a bit more than just food policy in the position.
Senator, is this
Thank you. Yes, I think it's an important enough position that it actually be in the mayor's cabinet. It would be a cabinet level position for my administration, and I'll tell you why. When I used to work for the city over 30 years ago, there was a study by Yale students about hunger in our town. We still have food deserts and hunger in our town. And I think if we don't have a position that can move between the health department, the school system, work with our elderly services on food issues, that we will still have a food problem and we will not really make the progress that we can make. So I really think that it has to be focused on food. It has to have the ability to deal with policy across departments and integrate our approach across departments to food policy. I believe it's a food justice issue that we haven't grappled with yet in our city.
I think we need a director. I will hire someone from the farmer's market, teach our young children how to plant, how to harvest foods, how to go to these gardens in the city, and to people, teach them how to do that at their home, because you got to understand something. People got a lot of things they're not doing with their property. You know, when I was growing up, everybody had a garden in the back of their house, and that's not happening today. You know, I have a garden in the back of my house. My aunt had a garden in the back of her house, and I give them the tools and the know-how how to do it. Once you start hiring your kids to do these type of jobs and to create a great atmosphere in our city where the children will be working with the homeowners, working with the vacant lots, working with the community, and make our city a better city.
This is a critical position for the city. And the reason we call it food systems director is because it touches on everything from the growth to the consuming to what happens with the food scraps when you're done with them, composting. This person, Baltimore has a great model, should pay for themselves. The question is, how do you pay for these positions? Because I don't know if you folks know, I've heard, the city doesn't have a lot of money. This person needs to pay for themselves, and the way they do that is by saving the city a lot of money by diverting trash to compost, which will save the money per ton a lot. It saves the city a lot of money. Things like how to rent out our industrial kitchens in our schools after school when they're not being used to save a little money. Even maybe having a cafe in City Hall where city employees can talk over issues. Maybe while you're paying taxes, you can have a cup of coffee, and maybe they can pay a little rent to City Hall so we can pay for that food systems director.
I'm not punishing you. I've been informed that the questions have not been picked up by cable as it reported it. So, hold it closer up.
There you go.
The next question is from a Hill House High School student whose name does not appear on the list. It's about school food and food education. And the question will go to Justin Elliker. Would have thought that one would go with Mr. Caroline.
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
I'm DeAndre White. I just graduated from James Wells. I'm with Youth Unleashed, and we've been campaigning for better sanitary conditions in school and better and healthier food. So my question is, in a recent study of 1,200 5th and 6th graders in New Haven, 50% of students were overweight or obese. Our school district has improvements to nutritional quality of the food served to our students, including the addition of salad bars and whole wheat bread. But there is more to be done. The district has hired new food service directors and will be rolling out a comprehensive health curriculum over the next 3 years. As mayor, what do you do to plan to support for our students good health education for our families and good jobs for our workers?
So the food that we give to our kids in schools is things like Apple Jacks and Fruit Loops. This is a crime. Our young people are learning how to eat in our schools, and they're eating things like this, which are high in sugar, and not only are they teaching you bad habits, but they're making you addicted to school, to this type of food. We need to change that in our schools. Who's running the ship where these things are the things that our kids are eating? So that's first of what we must do, is change what we are feeding our kids. And I actually talked with some kids that were in a program, the junior high school kids in summer program from around the city. And the first thing that they brought up to me, the first question they asked is, are you going to make our school food tastier? They love the salad, but they say that it's old and not tasty. The chicken, not so tasty. We need to improve that. We've got a centralized kitchen. There's a lot of ways that we can improve and have food in our own schools. Curriculum will be improved. We just purchased a new curriculum, but we need to make sure that curriculum is implemented. And I look forward to the other minute that I have because I've run out of time.
Santiago gets it.
Justin, when I grew up, we didn't have that. And I'll bring back the old days. We had cornflakes, Cheerios, and you do a lot of exercise during school. We had recess. You go running, after school, we had after school programs where you could go to team centers, play basketball, and we had good food. We had garden-grown food, and that's the most important thing. I lived on Thompson Street when I grew up in New Haven, and everybody had a garden. Everybody, everybody had a garden. But now, we went to this fast food program. Well, McDonald's was the first thing you kids wanted, and Burger King's. I had to argue with my daughter today. She wanted to go to Burger King's. But if I don't take her to Burger King's, she has a problem. It was my problem. So I caved in and told her to get one hamburger. But at the same time,
Just tell the truth. Can't put it no other way. Henry Fernandez.
before, there's really two issues that impact obesity. One is what kids are eating. The other is how much exercise they're getting. We do have schools that still don't have recess in New Haven. That's wrong. It ensures that our kids are not moving and not exercising. We need to also make sure that we cut crime so that kids feel safe and parents feel safe, allowing children to ride their bicycles, walk to the park, play with their friends, things that we all did to stay in shape. We didn't have to have play dates and go to exercise classes. At the same time, we do need to impact, and Justin's right, we do need to impact what kids are getting for breakfast and for lunch, and hopefully with the new staffing in the food service department for the schools, we'll be able to do that. The last thing I'd point to is I think we need to have very serious conversations with the small stores that are around our schools who are making their money off selling candy to our kids. We should have conversations with them about what they're selling and what they make available.
So I'm very proud of that young man there, and a graduate of Hill House. And certainly, one of the things that I'm very proud of as principal is I spend a lot of time meeting with my student leaders, particularly Youth Unleashed. And they consistently come to me and they bring a lot of issues to me that exist within our school building and the school and the city in general. And one of the things that was the most disturbing this year that was brought to me by the group, they brought me a picture of a cheeseburger that was uncooked. And immediately while there, they brought the picture to me, and immediately I emailed that picture downtown to Will Clark, who heads up that food area, and I also made it known while the students were sitting right there that it was not cool, they were not happy, and that they were going to come down and meet with him to discuss ways of improving our food that we provide. And speaking of Will Clark, and I'm going to put him probably directly in front of this because it's well known through New Haven Independent that he said there was no money available for the schools to provide to spend on fresh foods. We want cafeteria workers to have the ability to cook fresh food on site. And he said that there was no money available. And I think that considering things that we spend money on that are wasteful, we can find resources within the school district to spend money in a better way. And last but not least, I want to say that our gym class, I'm proud of the fact that we do P90X in our gym class. My gym teachers do promote that, and it's great to walk and see a room full of kids doing P90X. So they get exercise.
Thank you very much. I believe that the Board of Education really needs to have a committee on food as a part of what it does, and to use the State Department of Education's nutritional food guidelines as the baseline and then to improve it from there. And so what you really need to have is a farm to schools program so that the schools are getting fresh fruits and vegetables into the school. The other thing is that the cafeteria workers need to have, one, prepare the food on site, but that needs to be a job that can go from cafeteria worker and then through training to cook one, cook two, to chef, so that there is a job ladder in that whole profession that really allows more of the food to be prepared on site and for that food to be fresh. And there needs to be a feedback loop as well from the young people, from the young people indicating that how good we're doing.
Elected officials who get involved in this area of trying to improve people's diets, frequently are put down as, they want to be nannies. And we see that at the Capitol. You saw that in New York with Mayor Mike Bloomberg. So I want to ask you folks, can the mayor of New Haven have the influence, have the stature, as Mike Bloomberg did in New York, to try to attack either through ordinance or persuasion what people are eating and drinking. We're talking portion sizes that in fast food places, we're talking school lunches. How do you feel about that, right? Senator Hart, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I actually introduced a bill that at least required that the menus in fast food indicate the nutritional value, the calories, and